I don't know if anyone can hear me. But if you're out there, if you're breathing somewhere under this heavy sky, behind cracked glass or buried in snow, I need you to listen. This is Bunker Station Echo 7, transmitting from the lower base sector of what used to be Juneau. It's snowing again. Harder than yesterday. The wind sounds like it's trying to peel the metal off the walls. I've reinforced the vents, but even so, I swear I can hear it seeping through the cold and something else. Something dragging. I woke up to the static today. It wasn't there last night. That particular frequency, that hum, it has a texture. I've come to know its flavor like I know the taste of copper in my mouth when I'm afraid. It means they're near. Or something is. Outside, it's white. A white that doesn't end. The kind of white that swallows shape and shadow alike, turning roads and bodies and memories into one blur of silence. The cold has erased everything. Everything except the sound of my own voice. That's why I keep talking. Even if I'm the last. Even if this mic is dead and I'm just whispering into a machine that no longer cares. But if you are listening, welcome. This is the Underground Bunker broadcast. I started this transmission 219 days ago. I haven't spoken to another human in at least 60. They say the infection slows in the cold. That the reanimated ones, the walkers, the frozen, the dead who downtrod, become sluggish when temperatures drop. That's half true. What they don't tell you is that the cold doesn't stop them. It just makes them quieter. More patient. I used to think they howled. Now I know they wait. I know you're not tuning in for philosophy. You want survival. You want to know how to keep breathing when the world won't warm back up. So here's tip 1, and it might save your fingers, your face, maybe your life. Heat without fire. Fire draws them. Smoke curls through cracks in frozen brick and gives you away. So forget matches. What you need is friction, movement, insulation. I built a heat cell from salvaged batteries and a busted car seat warmer. Wrapped it in scavenged wool and copper wire. No flame, no smoke. Just heat, steady and low. Keep your core warm and your outer shell layered with air pockets. Dead leaves stuffed between shirts. Plastic bags over socks. Wrap your legs in bubble wrap if you find it. Don't laugh. It's what saved me my first December out here. December. God, the days blur now. The calendar's just a wall of scratched plastic. I used to mark time. Not anymore. Now I measure days in transmissions. In how long the canned food lasts. In how many steps echo above the bunker. Last night, there were 3. 3 distinct sets of footsteps. One shuffled. One dragged. One tapped. Not even the snow could swallow the sound completely. They stayed for hours. Just above me. I didn't breathe the whole time. You learn to inhale soundlessly. You learn to make your heartbeat smaller. You learn that silence can be louder than screaming. I still don't know if they were dead. Or worse. The worst thing isn't the infection. It's not even the hunger. It's what's left behind when the screaming stops. That's why I talk to you. Because I need to believe someone's still out there, somewhere under a mountain of white. Someone who remembers music. Laughter. The smell of coffee or the feeling of sunlight warming your back. Someone who needs a voice in the dark. And in case you're just now tuning in, I'm not just here to survive. I'm here to help. I'll be sharing everything I know. Every trick. Every lesson. Every regret. You'll hear stories, not all of them mine. Some from strangers I never met but who left behind their ghosts in notes, tapes, or the way their rooms were frozen in time. I'll warn you when it's safe to breathe louder. I'll let you know when the snow's soft enough to bury footsteps. And I'll tell you, honestly, when hope is all you've got left. Because sometimes, that's more than enough. If you have a working transmitter, keep it off until you hear 3 short pulses like this. Tap tap tap. Followed by silence. That's my call out. It's safer that way. Don't respond unless the channel clears. We can't afford to lead them to you. And to the one who left the red canteen near the creek tunnel, thank you. I hope you made it out. Your note was brief, but I read it 3 times under the flicker of a tea candle. Keep walking north, and never stop broadcasting. I won't. Even if my voice is the last one left in the snow. Even if no one answers. Even if the cold forgets my name. This is Bunker Station Echo 7. Still alive. Still here. Still hoping. Broadcast paused. I'll return after rest cycle, assuming nothing changes. And if it does, you'll be the first to know. Sometimes I wonder if the cold really forgets anything. Maybe it remembers better than we do. It preserves. Locks things in place. Wraps them in frost like museum glass. Like the night I still try not to remember. It was before I found this bunker. Before the broadcast. Before I knew how to survive winter without burning everything around me. I was with someone then. Her name was Mara. I haven't said her name out loud in weeks. Saying it feels like cracking the seal on something sacred and painful at once. We had been running south when the first cold front hit hard. Not just snow, but a wall of ice and screaming wind. And behind us, they were faster than we thought they'd be. Quieter, too. That's the thing about the infected. They don't always come with warning. Sometimes they just appear, half frozen, eyes black with frostbite, jaws cracked from the cold but still moving. We found shelter in an abandoned ski patrol cabin. Just barely big enough for 2 people and a Coleman stove that hadn't been used since the resort shut down. I remember the way she curled into herself under the blankets, shaking, not from cold but from knowing we weren't alone out there. We could hear them just outside. Not moaning. Not banging. Just shuffling. Waiting. Like they knew we only had 1 night's worth of fuel. That night, Mara said something to me I'll never forget. She said, "It's not the cold that kills you. It's the waiting." I didn't understand her then. In the morning, we had to choose. Stay and freeze, or run and risk. I wanted to wait for the snow to slow. She wanted to move. We argued quietly, hissing words through clenched teeth. We had to whisper because any louder and they'd find us. She left first. Took the emergency pack and slipped out through the back. I watched her through a crack in the door, her figure shrinking into the storm, the red scarf around her neck the only color in the gray. I told myself I'd follow her in 5 minutes. I told myself I just needed to gather a few more things. But I never saw her again. That was the last storm before the deep freeze. The last time I believed that love was enough to outwalk the apocalypse. And the last time I stood by while someone disappeared into the white without doing everything I could to stop them. If you're listening, and you're out there, I'm sorry. It took me weeks to understand what she meant. That it wasn't the cold. It was the not knowing. The stillness. The endless stretch of time where you can't act, can't fight, can't even scream. You just wait. And waiting turns your blood colder than the snow ever could. So here's what I do now, and maybe it'll help you survive the next time you're stuck and scared and everything inside you is going numb. Layer your insulation smart. You don't need fancy gear. You just need space. Air between layers is your friend. Wool over cotton. Trash bags over boots. Pack dry grass into your sleeves if you have to. And if you find a vehicle, even a frozen one, strip it for insulation. Seat stuffing. Floor mats. Anything to build barriers between you and the freeze. And never stop moving for too long. I make a habit of pacing the bunker twice every hour. Even in the middle of the night. Especially then. Keeps circulation going. Keeps panic from nesting in your chest. I learned all that too late to help her. But maybe not too late to help someone else. There's a rhythm to winter. You have to move with it. Pause too long, and you'll freeze in more ways than one. Somewhere out there, the snow is still falling. Covering her footprints. Erasing the last place I saw her. I talk now because I didn't then. I broadcast because I was silent when it mattered most. And I'll keep talking. Until someone answers. Or until the silence takes me too. I'll rest now. But I'll be back soon. Don't wait too long to move. That night I couldn't sleep. My legs ached from pacing, but still I moved. Back and forth, counting steps in the dark. Trying not to picture the snow swallowing the last of her path. Trying not to imagine how it ends when you're alone and cold and everything's gone too quiet. But then the static changed. I've learned to hear the difference. Most days, the signal hums like a dead thing. A dull tone stretching through the silence. But this time, it trembled. Almost like something breathing. Then, a crackle. And a voice, broken, desperate, barely intelligible, cut through the static for a few seconds before vanishing again. I froze, hand hovering over the console. My pulse slammed against the inside of my skull. The voice wasn't mine. That changes everything. For a moment, I didn't know what to do. It had been weeks since I heard anything on the frequency that wasn't my own echo bouncing back at me. I replayed it, over and over. Couldn't make out more than a few words. Help. Cold. East Tunnel. Something about children. It could have been a recording. Could have been a trap. Could have been some automatic system glitching in the ruins. But it also could have been real. Someone still breathing. I sat there, frozen by doubt. That same paralyzing stillness Mara warned me about. And that's what did it. That memory shoved me forward. I switched over to the shortwave backup and scanned every nearby frequency for hours. Nothing. Just silence again. But silence can't erase the sound once you've heard it. Someone tried to reach out. And it reminded me why I started this broadcast in the first place. Not to speak into the void, but to listen for the ones still fighting to stay alive. If that was you, if somehow you're the voice that came through the frost, I heard you. I'm still listening. I won't stop listening. The hardest part about survival isn't the hunger or the cold or even the infected. It's the loneliness. We weren't made for silence. We were made for voices. For touch. For shared breath and shared fear. That's why I keep talking, even when my throat's raw and my lungs feel like they've been laced with snow. So now I want to pass on something else. A way to talk back, even if your transmitter's broken or buried or too weak to push a full signal. If you have access to copper wire, a metal pole, or even the scrap from a radio antenna, you can build a simple makeshift transmitter booster. Wrap the wire in tight spirals, attach it to a long vertical object, like a curtain rod or broomstick, and run it outside, high up if you can. Even 5 feet above your bunker or shelter makes a difference. Make sure it's insulated from snow as best you can. Ice distorts everything. But if you angle it right, and time your message just after nightfall, when atmospheric bounce is strongest, your voice might ride the cold further than you think. That's what I did tonight. Boosted the antenna with wire from an old microwave and mounted it through the ceiling hatch. And I called out again. Same message. Same rhythm. Tap, tap, tap. Then silence. If you heard me, answer when you can. And if you're scared, I understand. I used to be terrified just turning the radio on. Afraid the static would answer me back. But static is better than silence. The first winter I spent alone, I tore apart an old cassette player trying to fix its speaker. I thought I could use it to record my voice. Leave something behind. It didn't work. But in the process, I found something inside that changed everything, a tape labeled in pen, almost too faded to read. It said, "Don't forget how to be human." There was no voice on it. Just wind. Just footsteps. Just the sounds of someone else trying to stay alive. But it was enough. Enough to remind me I wasn't the first to walk through this. And I won't be the last. This is what I can offer now. A voice. A pattern. A signal cutting through the frost. I'll keep sending out tips, stories, memories, anything to help. Because connection is survival. This is Bunker Station Echo 7. Still alive. Still hoping. Still listening. I didn't expect to see her again. Not like that. It was the 5th day after the voice came through. The storm had settled just enough for me to crack open the hatch and let in a sliver of sky. The cold bit instantly, but I needed air, needed to feel something other than recycled breath and the hum of machinery. That's when I saw her. At first, I thought it was Mara. The way the figure moved, small and fast, darting between the skeletal trees just beyond the ridge. But it wasn't Mara. It was a girl. Tiny, wrapped in what looked like layers of mismatched coats. A bright red jacket too big for her frame flared behind her as she ran, like a flare in the snow, impossibly vivid. She didn't stumble. She didn't look back. And she was alone. There was no way she survived that long out there alone. Not a child. Not in this. And yet, she ran like she knew exactly where she was going. I wanted to call out, but my throat closed around the words. I hesitated. Again. Like I always seem to do when it matters most. By the time I got the hatch open fully and climbed halfway out, she was gone. Just white hills and the wind. And then, the doubt crept in. Had I really seen her? Or was it just another trick the snow plays on the mind after too many days underground? The red could have been a piece of tarp caught on a branch. The motion could have been a deer. A hallucination. But I saw footprints the next morning. Small ones. Human. Leading away from the ridge. I didn't follow them. I couldn't. My last supply run had nearly killed me. I wasn't strong enough. Not yet. So instead, I watched. 4 hours. Days. Nothing else moved. No return. Just wind, and that trail vanishing beneath fresh snow. The guilt has been eating at me. Again. First Mara. Now this. If she was real, and if she needed help, and I did nothing, then what's the point of any of this? That question haunts me more than the cold. It reminded me of something I've been meaning to share. Something that could keep you alive if you ever do spot someone, or something, out there and have to decide whether to run or reach out. Know your limits. But more than that, know the signs of hypothermia, both in yourself and in others. Because that's the line. That's when decisions go from difficult to dangerous. If your skin starts to feel warm in the cold, that's not comfort, it's collapse. If you're shivering uncontrollably, good. It means your body's still fighting. But if the shivering stops and your thoughts feel slow, if your fingers stop hurting and your vision narrows like you're falling asleep, get warm. Fast. Even if it means tearing apart your shelter and making a cocoon of insulation. Even if it means crawling inside a gutted animal carcass like I once did, screaming the whole time. You can't think your way out of hypothermia. You act. Or you die. And if you see someone like the girl in the red jacket, small, fast, not stumbling, that's a good sign. If they're moving deliberately, making decisions, scanning their surroundings, they might not be as fragile as you think. But if they're staggering, coat open, eyes unfocused, you have seconds, maybe minutes, to help. Or to get away, depending on what they really are. That's the thing, isn't it? We don't always know what we're seeing anymore. The infection changed more than biology. It changed the rules of what's real. What's safe. What counts as alive. And I'm still not sure what she was. A survivor? A hallucination? Something else? But I see her when I close my eyes now. That red shape flickering through the snow. A flame. A warning. A chance. Maybe next time I won't hesitate. Maybe next time I'll move fast enough to matter. I've reinforced the hatch since then. I keep the binoculars next to the cot. I don't let myself sleep without scanning the ridge once more, just in case she comes back. I keep thinking she might. And if she does, I'll be ready. After I saw the girl in the red jacket, or thought I did, I started paying more attention to the sounds coming from the walls, from the pipes, from the floors. Not just the wind or the groaning of the old structure, but subtler things. Echoes that didn't belong. A scuff, a knock, a faint shuffle I couldn't place. At first, I told myself it was the wind finding new paths through the snowdrifts, vibrating through the old vent shafts and giving the illusion of footsteps. But one night, I heard it again. Different this time. Rhythmic. 3 knocks. A pause. Then 2 more. Then silence. I froze in my cot, every muscle tight. My breath clouded in front of me. The fireless heat cell hummed beside me, but the room still felt suddenly colder. My mind went back to the red jacket. Had she followed the ridge? Found the entrance? Was it her? Or was it one of them, learning how to mimic what we fear and what we hope? I didn't open the door. Not that night. I didn't even move. Just lay there with my fingers wrapped around the handle of the crowbar I sleep with. Listening. Counting the seconds between each new knock. They didn't come again. Not until 3 days later. This time it was from the west wall. Not the hatch. A different part of the bunker entirely, one that I had assumed was sealed against the old sewer system. But the sound came from there. A low, dragging thud. Then another. That's when I remembered something I read in one of the old journals I found. A man who bunkered down in an old subway maintenance room had written about hearing voices coming from the ventilation shafts. At first, he thought it was the echo of his own transmissions. But the voices knew his name. He never found the source. Just kept writing until one day the entry stopped. The entry before the last one said, "They're inside the walls now." Or I am. I think about that a lot. This bunker I'm in, it wasn't built by me. I found it. Reinforced it. Learned its shape in the dark. But it wasn't made to be a home. It was a fallback point, meant to be temporary. There's another chamber next to mine. I've never been able to access it. The door's welded shut and surrounded by concrete. I figured it was just storage. Maybe full of broken equipment. But what if it's not empty? What if someone's in there? Or something. The last time I heard the knocking, it was different. Softer. Closer. I put my ear against the wall, held my breath, and for a second I thought I heard breathing. Slow. Labored. Human, maybe. That's when I made a decision. I built a second barrier. Reinforced the wall with scavenged scrap. If there's something behind there, something that hasn't made its move in months, it's either too weak to break through, or smart enough to wait. And neither one of those is a good sign. Still, I can't stop thinking about the idea that there's another bunker next door. Another soul, trapped and pounding in vain. What if they've been trying to get out? What if all this time, we were both waiting for the other to move first? It haunts me, the way this place whispers. The way loneliness can make you hear kindness and danger. Or danger and kindness. And it reminds me of something I should tell you. If you're in a bunker, a basement, or any enclosed space, map every wall. Knock. Listen. Scratch markings if you have to. Create an acoustic map of your shelter. You'd be surprised how much you can learn from the way sound travels. If it echoes sharply, you've got open space beyond. If it dies fast, it's packed or solid. And if it answers back, don't speak. Just listen. Measure. Wait. Feel the rhythm. Count the time between knocks. Human patterns are different from animal or machine. You'll learn to recognize the difference. Your life may depend on it. I'm still deciding if I'll try to open the sealed wall. Maybe not yet. Maybe not alone. But if you're hearing this, and you're somewhere cold, and the walls have started whispering, don't ignore it. And don't answer too quickly. After the knocking stopped, I didn't sleep for 2 nights. I tried. Curled under every layer I had, face pressed against my own breath to keep warm, eyes squeezed shut so hard they ached. but the silence behind the wall was worse than the sound. It made me feel like something was waiting, listening back. That kind of silence becomes its own kind of noise. I started going through the old storage boxes again. Not to pass time, there's too much of that, but to remind myself I wasn't the first person to feel this. That others had tried, had lived, even if only for a while. One box held what looked like random junk, broken flashlights, empty cans, a cracked thermos. But tucked in the bottom, under a plastic sheet stiff with age, I found a handful of laminated pages. Notes. Scribbled in desperate handwriting. Some were supply lists. Others were just words. Apologies. Goodbyes. And one that I can't stop thinking about. It was written on the back of an old maintenance checklist. Red marker. Blocky print. Almost childlike in its simplicity. Don't let it end quiet. No name. No date. No clue who wrote it. But I felt those words like a pulse. Like a warning. Or a promise. That's when I remembered something else. Weeks ago, maybe longer, I can't tell anymore, I came across a half-frozen bus near the old tunnel entrance. Most of the windows were gone. The seats torn. Snow packed in so tightly it looked like the whole thing had been swallowed. I almost didn't climb in. But something had scratched into the frosted glass of one of the windows from the inside. Letters carved by hand, jagged and uneven, like someone was bleeding when they wrote it. It said, "Follow the letters in the snow." I assumed it was madness. A delusion scrawled in the final hours. But now I wonder. So this morning, I did something I hadn't dared before. I left the bunker. Only a short distance, just far enough to reach the ridge where I thought I saw the girl in the red jacket. My legs screamed in protest from disuse, and every breath stabbed with cold. But I moved slow. Careful. Listening. Watching the snow for signs. And I found one. Not footprints. Not drag marks. Letters. Half buried, shaped out of sticks and dark cloth scraps frozen into the ground. Just one word, north. No other signs. No shelter. No trail. Just that. Someone took the time to leave a message where they knew someone might see it. And that means they wanted it read. So now I have a new habit. Every day, I walk the short ridge path when the weather allows. I scan the horizon. I check the snow. And I carry something with me, pieces of charcoal, a strip of faded red cloth, broken plastic cut into shapes. So I can write back. If they're out there, I want them to know someone saw. And I want you to know this too, you can leave signs without saying a word. If you're on the move, and you're trying to stay unseen but still want to be found, leave letters. Symbols. Shapes. Not in the snow where they'll vanish, but in the trees. On walls. Under door frames. Use ash, or grease, or the last bit of your blood if you have to. Use repetition. Always the same symbol, the same placement. That way, someone will know it's a message, not just coincidence. And if you find one that repeats, be cautious, but take note. You may not be alone. We are pattern-seeking creatures. It's what kept us alive before all this. That instinct still matters. Trust it. I don't know who's leaving the messages. Or why. But I believe they're trying to tell me something. And I'll keep answering. Quietly. Patiently. Because even in the frost, even in the silence, words can survive. Still alive. Still writing. Still waiting for someone to read. After leaving that first message, I sat at the ridge until my fingers went numb through 2 layers of gloves. I kept staring into the white, hoping for some kind of answer. A figure. A flicker. Even a shadow. But nothing moved. Just the wind carving the drifts into new shapes, erasing everything. When I came back inside, I didn't turn on the radio. Didn't light the oil lamp. I just sat in the dark and listened. Silence used to scare me. It felt like punishment. The kind of quiet that presses on your ribs and fills your ears until your own heartbeat becomes a noise you can't escape. But now, silence feels different. It feels like shelter. When the world up there screams and growls and scrapes and shuffles, silence becomes sacred. It means nothing is hunting. Nothing is circling. No claws on steel. No teeth against concrete. Just breath. Just stillness. Sometimes I think this bunker is more than steel and earth. It's a tomb that hasn't decided if it's for the dead or the living. And maybe that's why I've learned to build a space inside it that's not just for hiding, but for surviving the weight of being alone. If you're listening and you've found yourself in a shelter, a basement, a tunnel, or even an overturned car buried in snow, I want to tell you something that kept me from falling apart completely. Make yourself a corner. A place that feels like your own, even if the rest of the world has collapsed. Mine is just a pile of blankets in the corner farthest from the vents, with a broken photo frame propped against the wall. The picture inside it is blank now, too much moisture, too many days pressed against cold, but I still remember what it was. A group photo. Smiling faces I can't name anymore. But the warmth remains. That corner is where I read the old journals. Where I speak into this microphone. Where I remind myself I'm still a person. I've covered the walls there with scraps, pages from books, scribbled notes, part of a child's drawing I found in the pocket of a jacket. I can't tell if it's a cat or a monster. Some days it feels like both. The rest of the bunker is for function, supplies, defenses, escape routes. But that corner is mine. And that's what you need. Because if everything becomes survival, if every square inch is defense and utility, then there's nowhere left for your mind to rest. And you need that. You need a small place where you can remember who you were before the world froze. So here's my tip for today: create silence on purpose. Block the vents with old towels. Line the walls with cardboard or foam if you can find it. Build a box around your sleep space with furniture, blankets, even doors pulled off hinges. Make it soft. Make it quiet. Make it yours. And when you lie down there, try to think of one thing you miss that isn't a person. A sound. A taste. A small comfort. For me, it's the feeling of socks just out of the dryer. That stupid warmth against your toes that made winter bearable before winter became a monster. That memory is a weapon now. It reminds me of softness. Of light. Of the world that used to be. And I hold on to that. Because we don't just need food. Or heat. Or weapons. We need a reason to keep waking up. That memory. Warm socks from the dryer stayed with me longer than I expected. It curled around my thoughts as I lay in my quiet corner, the stillness folding over me like a second blanket. I almost felt safe. Almost. Then I heard them again. Not footsteps this time. Not knocking. Something stranger. Growling. Low. Wet. Too close. It came from outside the hatch. Just once. Then silence. But it was enough to jolt me back into motion. I reached for the crowbar and held my breath, waiting for more. Nothing came. The kind of nothing that's full of tension, like a breath held behind a door. I didn't sleep after that. Just watched the ceiling and tried to convince myself it had been an animal. A bear. A coyote. Something living. But deep down, I knew better. The infected don't growl like that. Not the way I remember. And animals don't approach bunkers unless they're desperate. That's what chilled me most. The idea that something out there had both the hunger and the confidence to come that close. I waited until daylight before opening the hatch a crack. Snow. Wind. Tracks. But not human. Paw prints. Big. Too big. Wider than my palm. Longer than any wolf should be. And spaced out in a pattern that didn't feel natural. Like whatever made them was limping. Or dragging something. I followed them for a bit, just far enough to confirm they were circling. Whatever it was had walked the full perimeter of the bunker. Twice. Then vanished back into the trees. I've lived with wolves before. Not in the literal sense, but close enough. I grew up where wild things came close to homes in winter, looking for scraps. I know their prints. Their behavior. And these weren't normal. The idea hit me as I was sealing the hatch again. What if the wolves have learned? What if hunger, cold, and silence have made them different, like they've made us different? I've heard stories on the broadcast before everything went down. Of animals adapting in strange ways. Of packs behaving differently near infected zones. Choosing their prey more carefully. Moving quieter. Studying. I didn't believe those stories then. Now I do. And that brings me to today's survival tip. One I learned the hard way on a supply run weeks ago. Scent matters. When the cold masks most movement, when sound dies fast in snow, your scent is all that's left. And anything desperate enough to survive this long, animal, infected, or something in between, can follow it. So you need to mask it. One way is ammonia. If you find old cleaning supplies, bottles of urine from abandoned buildings, even certain chemicals in empty labs, you can create a scent barrier. Soak rags and tie them around your boots. Place them at access points. It's disgusting, but it works. It confuses the scent trail. Makes it harder to track. Another method is smoke residue. Rub it into your clothes after burning paper or cloth. Just don't start a fire near your shelter. Do it far away, let the smoke cling to you, then return. It's risky. Everything is. But sometimes you have to trade comfort for protection. The truth is, I don't know what kind of creature was out there last night. But I know it was curious. And I know it walked like it remembered what doors are. So I'm reinforcing again. Not just for the infected now, but for things that were never meant to come this close. The cold has changed more than the people. It's changed everything. After that night, I started sleeping in shorter intervals, never more than an hour at a time. I didn't set alarms, just let my body wake me when the silence felt too thick, when the air shifted in that way it does before something changes. There's a sixth sense you develop when you live this long with fear. It's not paranoia. It's survival. But it was during one of those wake-ups that something unexpected happened. The radio came alive. Not in the usual way, not static, not the low pulse of my call-out signal, but a ripple of sound, faint and inconsistent, like wind carrying a melody through broken glass. It was nearly drowned out by the hum of the generator. I almost missed it. But then it rose. Words. Fragmented. Female. A voice, maybe mid-30s. Calm, even though it was shaking. Like someone trying to sound brave for whoever might be listening. Broadcasting on open band, if you can hear this, heading northwest, shelter compromised, repeat. Then silence. Just for a beat. Then music. Only for a few seconds. A song I used to hear in the grocery stores. The kind they looped endlessly through the aisles. Something about dreaming of spring. It was wrong, hearing that again. Wrong because it didn't belong. Wrong because it felt too warm, too alive. I ran to the transmitter and tried to triangulate the origin. But the snow was coming down again and the signal was bouncing. I caught no coordinates. No clear direction. Just a brief surge of range I can't explain. That's when I remembered a trick one of the old pre-fall survivalists talked about in their journals. During heavy snowfall, certain frequencies travel further, not shorter. The moisture in the air creates bounce layers, temporary windows where signal travels farther and clearer. A phenomenon he called radio rain. I never believed him. Thought it was just another poetic term someone clung to in order to feel like nature still held a kind of magic. But now I'm not so sure. Because that's twice now I've heard voices I can't explain, cutting through during storms. And I've started to wonder if these blizzards are more than weather. If they're messengers. So here's what I did, and what you can try if you've got a radio setup and some kind of battery power. During heavy snow, skin between bands. Don't stay fixed on one frequency. Sweep slowly. Even short bursts of transmission can break through. And if you can transmit, do it in intervals, 15 seconds on, 1 minute off. Always return to your base call sign. Mine is 3 short taps. Yours should be different. Repeatable. Distinct. Not verbal. Sound-based. That's safer. I've logged every detail of that voice. Every word, the exact time, the weather conditions. And I'll keep listening at that same hour for the next week. Because someone was out there. Someone strong enough to send a message in the middle of a storm. That kind of person doesn't give up easy. I wonder if she was the one who left the letters in the snow. Or maybe it's a group. Maybe there's more than one voice. Maybe it's a place I could reach. If I had to. I know I said I wouldn't leave the bunker again until spring. But if I keep hearing her, if the snow keeps singing, I might have to follow the melody. I didn't sleep after hearing that voice. I just sat at the edge of the cot, radio in my lap, listening to static like it was breath. Hoping for another word. Another whisper. Anything. But it never came back. So I tried to distract myself the only way I know how. I walked. Just inside the bunker, back and forth, one end to the other. 32 paces long, 21 across. I've measured it so many times I don't even have to count anymore. My feet know where to turn. And on one of those turns, something caught my eye. It was a food tin. One I thought I'd already emptied. But it was still sealed. I sat down with it, not to eat, but just to hold it. It was cold and smooth, and for a second, it made me feel like I'd found something impossible. Like I'd dug up a memory. That's when I started thinking about the town. The one just south of here, past the frozen river bend. I haven't been there since the early days, when I still believed there were places untouched. Places that might still look the way they used to. They didn't. That town was a photograph left too long in the sun. Everything faded. The signs, the colors, the people. I remember walking into a diner, half hoping the door would jingle, half dreading it might. It didn't. Just the creak of rusted hinges. The booths were still set, as if someone had stepped out mid-breakfast and never returned. Plates of frozen food. A cup of coffee turned to ice with the spoon still in it. A child's jacket on the bench, pink with little cartoon rabbits. Untouched. I sat in that booth for a long time. Not because I wanted to. Because I couldn't move. The weight of what used to be was heavier than any infected I'd ever run from. And it made me realize something. The cold doesn't just freeze bodies. It preserves the truth. That's why I go back sometimes. Not far into town, just the edges. The market. The corners where people left things behind. There's something sacred in what remains untouched. And something useful. The deep cold keeps food viable longer than you'd think. Keeps tools from rusting out. I once found an entire case of sealed MREs buried behind a pharmacy shelf because the collapse had pushed a cabinet over the box and no one had found it until I did. So here's today's tip. One that might give you a chance you didn't think you had. Use the cold as your freezer. If you found supplies, food, meds, even batteries, bury them in the frost outside your shelter, deep enough to stay hidden, shallow enough to retrieve fast. Use layers of canvas or plastic wrap if you can, to keep moisture off. Mark the area, not with something obvious, but with a pattern you'll recognize. A rock formation. A broken branch. A symbol carved into bark. And if you find yourself in a ghost town like the one I walked through, check the diners. The clinics. The schools. Places where people would have rushed out quickly. That's where the supplies tend to remain. Look in the forgotten places. Behind the vending machines. Inside the desks. Under the sinks. People in panic don't hide things. They drop them. And frost keeps them still. Sometimes I wonder how many other towns are like that, frozen in time. Full of stories that never got told. Meals that were never finished. Jackets that were never reclaimed. Memories no one's left to carry. Maybe that's what we are now. Carriers of memory. Walking through a frozen world trying to hold on to warmth that doesn't live in temperature, but in the things we remember. I still think about that pink jacket in the booth. Sometimes I dream I hear its owner's footsteps. Sometimes I wake up thinking I left something behind. Still alive. Still scavenging. Still holding on to pieces of a world frozen in place. I don't know what made me notice the bird. Maybe it was the silence. Not the heavy, weighted silence I've come to live with down here, but something different. A pause in the background static. A stillness that felt expectant, like the moment just before something falls. I was checking the hatch vent for frost buildup when I heard the tap. Soft. Deliberate. Once, then again. It wasn't wind or ice shifting. I know those sounds too well by now. This was lighter. Rhythmic. I waited, breath held, ears straining. Then I opened the hatch an inch, slow and careful, heart pounding against the inside of my ribs. He was just sitting there. A raven. One eye clouded over, feathers puffed against the cold, talons wrapped around the edge of the snow-crusted hatch. He didn't flinch when I opened the door. Just tilted his head like he was studying me. I almost laughed. The absurdity of it. All this time with nothing but static and echoes and the occasional scream from far off, and now I had a bird. A one-eyed sentinel on my rooftop. He didn't fly away, even when I spoke to him. I kept my voice low, unsure if I was comforting him or myself. I tossed him the last crumbs of an old cracker and closed the hatch, assuming that would be the end of it. But he came back the next day. And the next. Same hour. Same tap. It became part of my routine. Check the perimeter. Scan frequencies. Feed the bird. I started calling him Rook. No idea why. It just fit. Naming things helps, I think. Makes the world feel a little less empty. At first, I told myself it was just survival instinct. He came for food, nothing more. But after a week, something changed. He brought me something. A torn strip of cloth. Red. Too clean to be random. Too deliberate to be an accident. I held it for a long time, sitting just inside the hatch, the wind biting at my face, the bird watching me with that one good eye like he knew what he'd done. Like he knew what it meant. And maybe he did. Maybe I'm losing it. But what if he's seen someone? What if he follows trails I can't? Flies over ruins I'll never reach? Carries pieces from one survivor to another without knowing the weight of what he holds? Or maybe he does know. Maybe he remembers the warmth of hands that once fed him before the frost. Maybe he still hears voices calling from rooftops that don't exist anymore. It's hard to say what's real these days. But I started leaving the hatch open a little longer. Just in case he brings something else. A sign. A scrap. A thread of connection between me and whoever else is still out there. And it got me thinking. About animals. About how we always think of them as beneath us. As simple. Predictable. But maybe they've been adapting faster than we have. Maybe while we've been hiding and hoarding and broadcasting our desperation, they've been learning how to survive in this world we broke. There was a story once, in one of the journals. A blind man in the southern zones who trained a crow to bring him objects by scent. He said the bird saved his life more than once. Led him to warmth. To food. Even to another person. Maybe that story wasn't fiction after all. So here's something to consider, something I never thought I'd say. Pay attention to the animals. Watch how they move. Where they go. What they fear. If they avoid a building, so should you. If they hover near a path, look closer, it might be warmer, or safer, or recently traveled. And if one of them comes to you more than once, don't ignore it. They don't waste energy. They don't cling to hope. They move because something tells them to. Instinct. Memory. The rhythm of a world we're still trying to understand. So now Rook is part of this bunker. Part of this broadcast. And maybe part of something bigger I don't see yet. Maybe he's the first sign in a long time that I'm not as alone as I thought. That night, after Rook brought the red cloth, I stayed awake longer than usual. I sat by the hatch, the strip folded in my lap, thinking about where it might have come from. A jacket. A flag. A marker. I imagined someone wrapping it around a branch, tying it to a fence, dropping it by accident. Every possibility felt like a breadcrumb, and I was starving for direction. Then, sometime past midnight, I heard something new. Not a knock. Not a growl. A sound that didn't belong to anything I've ever known. It started low. Faint. A hum, like wind through rusted piano wire. But it had rhythm. Pulse. A shape to it. It grew louder, not with volume but with presence. Like it was filling the space, seeping through the cracks in the concrete, whispering against the metal walls. It wasn't mechanical. It wasn't the wind. And it wasn't entirely human either. But it had a pattern. Like a song made of breath and bone. I froze, not from fear exactly, but because something inside me recognized it. Not the sound itself, but the feeling it brought. The kind of feeling you get standing at the edge of something ancient. Like the forest before a storm. Or the ocean just before it swallows the sun. It didn't last long. A minute, maybe less. Then silence. I waited, ears ringing, every sense stretched so thin it felt like I might dissolve. But nothing came. No footsteps. No tapping. No voice. Just silence. But not the safe kind. This was something else. Something watching. In the morning, I stepped outside. Carefully. Slowly. Just long enough to check for tracks. None. But there were grooves in the snow, shallow and wide, like something had shifted beneath the surface. I marked the location with stones. When I came back inside, I didn't try to explain it. Not even to myself. I just lit a candle and stared at the wall for a long time, counting breaths. And then I remembered something I'd read months ago. Buried in an old emergency psychology manual, back when I still thought I might rebuild a little library down here. It said that extended isolation does something to perception. That after enough days in silence, the brain starts inventing patterns. Filling in the gaps with music, whispers, even full voices. But this wasn't in my head. I know what hallucinations feel like. I've had them. The woman in the snow. The echoes of Mara's voice. This was different. This had weight. Resonance. It moved the air. And I think it's happening more often. I've started keeping a log. Not just of what I hear, but when. Always at night. Always when I'm alone and still. And always when the air pressure drops right before a storm. The infected don't speak. They groan. Moan. Snap their jaws. But this was almost a language. I've been experimenting with soundproofing. Not to keep the noise out, but to measure it. I built a small chamber within the chamber. Blankets layered with foam, sealed with duct tape and plastic wrap. I sit in there sometimes with the radio off, the lights off, everything off. Just to listen. And I'm starting to notice patterns. Not just random sound. Rhythms. Intervals. Like calls and responses. Like chants. And the worst part is, I think I'm starting to understand them. Not the words, if they are words. But the emotion behind them. Longing. Hunger. Pain. They sound like mourning. So here's what I've learned, and it might save your mind if not your body. Give your brain something to hold on to. Rhythm. Routine. Sound. Anything that belongs to you. Don't let the silence fill that space first. Sing if you have to. Recite old poems. Make noise, even if it's just to remind yourself what human sounds like. Because there are things out there learning how to echo us. And if you don't keep your voice strong, theirs might start to sound like yours. I haven't spoken aloud all day. It wasn't a conscious decision. It just happened. I woke up and kept quiet. Brewed some melted snow with dried tea leaves. Ate half a ration bar. Checked the radio. Sat in my corner. All in silence. After what I heard last night, what I felt, I guess I was afraid that speaking might invite something back. Like breaking the stillness would open a door I wasn't ready to walk through. But silence is dangerous too. Around hour 14 without using my voice, I started to feel it. That slippage. Like I was watching myself from somewhere outside, hovering just over my shoulder. My thoughts got louder. My breath felt disconnected. Everything moved like a dream, heavy and slow. So I lit a flame. Not because I needed warmth. The bunker was holding steady. But I needed to see something alive. Flickering. Moving the way real things move. And I stared at that little flame until the wax melted down to a sliver. Then I started talking. At first just nonsense. Counting. Old radio call-outs. Names I barely remember. Then a story. Mine. I said everything I could out loud. How I got here. What I've done. What I regret. Who I miss. And when I finished, I cried. The kind of crying that doesn't make sound. Just shaking, breathless sobs. It didn't last long. But it was enough. Enough to remind me I'm still human. You need that. You need to hear your own voice. Not just to talk to others, but to anchor yourself to reality. Because once you stop speaking, the world starts to fold in. Your mind turns corners it shouldn't. Makes ghosts out of memories. I've made peace with a lot of things down here. With hunger. With cold. With fear. But not with forgetting who I am. So here's something I haven't told anyone. Not even the radio. My name is Elias. It's strange saying it. Like dragging it back from a forgotten drawer. Elias. That was my name before the outbreak. Before the frost. Before I started living underground, whispering into a mic hoping someone was still out there to care. And maybe that doesn't matter anymore. But I needed to say it. Because you need to say your name too. Even if no one hears. Especially then. Write it on the walls. Carve it into wood. Etch it into the corner of a book page. Do not let the cold take that from you. If you lose your name, you lose the thread. And if you lose the thread, you start to unravel. So today's tip, as strange as it sounds, is this. Speak. Even if only to yourself. Speak often. Speak clearly. Name things. Name yourself. Name the silence. Language is what separates us from what's out there. And once that line blurs, it's hard to come back. It's been 3 hours since I said my name out loud. I already feel steadier. Still alive. Still speaking. Still Elias. It's strange, the power of something as small as a name. After I said it, Elias, it lingered in the air like steam. For a few minutes, the bunker didn't feel quite as cold. I whispered it again the next morning while boiling snow, and again while winding the emergency radio. Not for drama, not for some ritual, just to hear it. Just to make it real. It grounded me. But the world doesn't stop just because I remember who I am. The cold still presses in through the concrete. Supplies still run low. And something is still moving out there. 2 nights ago, I went topside again. Just for a moment. Long enough to scan the ridge, check my snow traps, and leave a bit of dry bread for Rook. But as I turned to close the hatch, I heard it. A sound I hadn't heard since before the fall. Lullabies. Soft. Crackling. Warped through frequency and static. Not music. Not from a speaker. Not mechanical. A melody. It floated on the air like smoke. Notes drifting between the trees. Too slow, too old to be digital. Like something recorded to tape and left to rot, then somehow resurrected. I followed it. Only for a few steps. Only until I saw the thing that was playing it. It was a cassette recorder. Half buried in a drift at the base of a snapped telephone pole. Snow had iced over the buttons, and yet, it was playing. No batteries, at least none that I could see. No power source. But it spun, the tape inside turning, whispering notes into the air. And no one else was around. No footprints. No drag marks. Just that thing, sitting in the snow like it had been placed there on purpose. I didn't touch it. Not because I was afraid of traps, though I was. But because something about it felt sacred. Like it didn't belong to this time, or even this place. It felt like a message. So I stood there and listened. For maybe 5 minutes. Maybe more. The song ended. Clicked. Rewound itself. Then silence. I turned and walked back to the hatch. Didn't look back. That night, I didn't sleep. Not from fear, but from the weight of it. The mystery. The memory. I remember that song. My mother used to hum it when the lights went out during storms. I hadn't thought of it in years. But there it was, playing from a dead recorder in the middle of nowhere. And it made me think, maybe we're not as cut off as we believe. Maybe the past is still echoing through this world. Maybe people like us, people surviving in the margins, are leaving breadcrumbs. Pieces of comfort for the ones who come next. Music. Notes. Tape recorders that never die. So now I've started building something. A loop. I dug up my old voice recorder and began stitching together messages. Not just survival tips, but stories. Truths. Laughter. A recording of my heartbeat. Another of me saying my name. Over and over. And when I run out of batteries, or run out of days, I'll leave the recorder somewhere high. Somewhere dry. Somewhere someone might find it. Because that song reminded me of something I've forgotten. We're not just meant to survive. We're meant to be found. Even if it's long after we're gone. If you're listening to this and you have a recorder, start your loop now. Fill it with pieces of yourself. Your voice. Your hopes. Your regrets. They're anchors. Markers. Beacons in the frost. One day, someone might find your voice and feel a little less alone. I played my loop back this morning. It was strange, hearing my own voice through the recorder. The pauses between sentences, the catch in my throat when I said my name. I didn't sound the way I remember. There was a tremor in my tone that I hadn't noticed before, something hollow and stretched, like the echo of someone I used to be. Still, I listened to the entire message. All 9 minutes of it. Then I recorded a new one. A shorter one. Simpler. Whoever finds this, you're not the first, and you won't be the last. Don't lose your name. Don't lose your voice. Keep something soft inside you, no matter what the world tries to freeze. I said it 3 times. Then I rewound the tape, packed it into a waterproof container I salvaged from an old med kit, and placed it near the entrance. Not outside. Not yet. But ready. In case. I've started to feel the weight of preparation. Not just for supply runs or potential breaches, but for the end. Not necessarily death. Just the end of this version of the story. The end of me being the only voice down here. Because I don't think I'm alone anymore. Not in the metaphorical way. I mean physically. Last night, during one of my sleep cycles, I woke up to movement. Not above. Not outside. Inside. The soft clatter of something metal shifting on the shelf across the bunker. A tin cup, I think. I didn't imagine it. I saw it in the faint glow of the emergency light. Saw it tilt. fall. Roll once, then stop. But when I searched the bunker, every room, every crawl space, nothing. No prints. No signs of forced entry. But my pack was open. Not torn. Not disturbed. Just unzipped. And something was missing. The photograph. The one I kept in my corner, even though the image had long since faded. The empty frame was still there, leaning against the wall. But the photo, the one that used to live in it, the last remnant of something warm, that was gone. Someone took it. Or something did. I didn't sleep after that. I just sat in my corner, crowbar in hand, flashlight ready, heart pushing against my ribs like it wanted out. Nothing else happened. But the air felt different. Thicker. And then, as the light began to shift toward morning, I heard it again. Not from the recorder. Not from the radio. From behind the sealed wall. The same pattern of knocks. The same rhythm as before. But softer. Slower. Like breathing. I don't think whatever's behind there is trying to get out anymore. I think it's waiting for me to open it. And the worst part is, I'm starting to want to. I want answers. I want contact. I want to believe that what's behind that wall isn't a threat, but a beginning. A second voice. A survivor. A shadow of who I could have been if I hadn't been so afraid. But I know the rules. I've spoken them into this mic over and over. Hope can save you. But it can also lead you straight into the dark. So here's my final message. Not just for you. For myself. Leave something behind. Not just supplies. Not just instructions. Something personal. Something human. A letter. A photo. A story. Anything that says, I was here, and I meant something. Because this frost will bury bones in silence, but it can't kill a name spoken loud. A voice recorded. A message left behind. If you find this bunker, and it's empty. If the hatch is sealed but the recorder still plays. Know that I lasted as long as I could. That I remembered my name. That I chose to speak, even when no one answered. Still alive. Still watching. Still waiting. But not afraid anymore.